Welcome to the AI Ireland podcast, your window into the world of AI innovation on the island of Ireland. Join us as we explore how AI is harnessed to tackle both business and societal challenges, revealing the cutting-edge solutions emerging from this vibrant AI community. Don't forget to subscribe for the latest updates and insights in the world of AI. Hello everybody, I'm very happy to welcome Dragoș Tudorache to the podcast today. I'll give you a little bit of an overview about Dragoș's background. He's a member of the European Parliament and Vice President of the Renew Europe Group. He's the chair of the Special Committee on Artificial Intelligence in the Digital Age, ADA, and the LIBE report on the AI Act. Dragoș is very knowledgeable in this area, and he's very kind to join us, and he's going to give us an overview about the EU AI Act, some of the principles behind it, when we can expect it to be a law, and a lot more. Dragoș, very welcome to have you on the show today. Dragoș, tell us where we're at with the AI EU Act. What needs to happen? Are we close to getting this closed off?
Well, as we speak, I don't know exactly when your audience will see it, but as we speak, we are literally in the day before the vote. So the final vote is going to be on Wednesday, the 13th of March, and that closes the legislative process. What follows afterwards is just a publication. There will be some time lag before the text will be ready for publication, and that is the official date of adoption for the Act, and that's when the implementation period kicks in.
I know it's hard to know for sure, but how long would you expect to come into effect? Would it be 18 months? Could it be 2 years? Shorter, longer? What are your top process?
The time frame, in fact, is quite precise because we have also negotiated that, and we have a phased implementation. We have 6 months from adoption for the prohibitions to kick in. So basically, those applications of artificial intelligence that are prohibited in the AI Act, those prohibitions will apply 6 months from the date of adoption. 12 months from the date of adoption is the period for the foundation models, the rules around foundation models to also become applicable, which means that also the AI office at the EU level, which is going to have the exclusive competence of policing these foundation models, will also have to be ready within 12 months from date of adoption, and then 24 months for the full scope of the law, for all of the norms to be applicable, which means that the member state authorities, which will be the ones responsible for dealing with the more, let's say, day-to-day mundane implementation of the law, they will have 24 months to basically prepare, recruit, equip their national regulators with what it takes to do this.
Talk me through the Act for people that don't necessarily know it or have a background in all the work that's gone on behind the scenes to this point, and what can people expect?
Well, as simple as I can explain it, this law is about the risks of us, you and me, citizens out there, interacting with this otherwise wonderful technology. And it's meant to protect us in that interaction, to make sure that our rights are not forgotten or affected in that intersection between us and the technology. And it does that by identifying those areas of risk, categorizing the risk from unacceptable, which means that those applications of AI are prohibited by law, to high risk, to lower risk, and then attaches obligations that are mostly built around transparency and explainability. Again, all that with the ultimate objective of creating trust in society in taking up these technologies.
So there's always a balance between innovation and regulation, and I'm conscious that you don't want to stifle innovation, but with it moving so fast, how do you take that into consideration, and what steps have you put in to make sure that Europe is competitive?
It's true that when we started the journey, the normative journey that got us to this point, this law was mostly focused, and this was the narrative around it. It was very much human-centric. It was very much built around this idea that, again, we as humans and more broadly as society, we need to be protected in front of the surge of this technology. But at the same time, we realized quite early on in the game that we also needed to build into this law the enablers for innovation to continue, because we recognize that, in fact, this is going to be the engine for the growth of all societies and economies in decades to come. And somehow, while putting all of these guardrails in place, these safeguards for human interaction, at the same time, we have to make sure that we're not putting, as you said, we don't stifle innovation, we don't put unnecessary barriers. So what we did was to find what can actually produce those barriers. And we looked at compliance costs, for example. And we said, how can we lower the compliance costs, even if you would be a company that ends up having to comply with the law? So we've introduced self-assessment, for example, so that you don't have to go and pay up others to do your assessment for you. We've introduced technical standards, so that if you are a startup only with 3 engineers and can't afford to pay a lawyer, you actually understand by looking at the standards what you technically have to do. You don't have to bring someone and interpret legal text for you. We've introduced sandboxes, again, with the idea that even if you have self-assessed, even if you looked at the standards, you understood what you had to do, but you still have some doubts. You're not sure, am I in that category of risk or am I in that category of risk? Do I have to comply or I don't have to comply? So you go into the sandbox, and there again, you interact directly with the regulator, free of cost. You verify your assumptions. You are allowed to make errors. You can retest, and then you can go on the market convinced that you have what it takes to comply. So all of these things are in the law to make sure that we also protect innovation and that we encourage, in fact, the uptake of AI, which is what we want.
And in some ways, you're in a very challenging situation because you've got the innovation piece, which is obviously very important, and you've given an exhaustive list there. And then you got the regulation piece where people want you to go a little bit further, and trying to balance between that. What areas was there, maybe such as deep fakes, for example, what areas was there that you felt potentially you wanted to try to cover, but maybe you held back because you just felt it probably wasn't as right to do that now, but maybe this can happen on future iterations?
Well, I think ultimately we didn't hold back on many things. I think we've managed to get through quite on all of the points that were important for the Parliament. But where I feel that the future very fast evolution of AI will be bringing new challenges that we'll have to look into, and maybe the AI Act will need adaptations, or maybe we'll need something extra going beyond the AI Act is copyright. I feel that we will need in the future to look again generally at the copyright framework, not only from the perspective of protecting the right holders from AI, but also ushering in a new era where AI will be producing things that might be worth protecting, in fact, with patents or copyright legislation. And many other aspects of the intersection between, again, copyright and generally the concept of creation and AI, because so far we as humans have had the monopoly over creation. and what do you know? We're now in an era where we no longer hold that monopoly. So that's one thing. Another thing is, again, looking at the deepfakes and the impact that it has on us and on society, on elections, and more generally on the trust that is at the heart of how our democracies function. We have introduced some rules that have to do with transparency, with obligations for watermarking content, but will they actually prove to be sufficient to actually address the concerns that we have? I think implementation will tell us whether we have done enough, whether the combination between the AI Act and the Digital Services Act, which is also introducing some accountability for content for platforms that are hosting content that might be AI generated or so on and so forth. So again, there's a lot that will have to play out in the implementation of all of the legislation that we've adopted on digital. And then I think that will possibly require further tweaks. And then we haven't yet seen what more and more people say that will actually happen sooner than we think, which is that quantum leap in AI, where it reaches that potential to be labeled as artificial general intelligence. And again, I think at that moment we might need to look again at governance and see what we need to do to put the right guardrails around that type of technology as well.
When you look at from employees' perspective or just general society, we see, Finland have been very proactive with this. We saw recently with Singapore, the announcement in Parliament about how proactive they're going to be from education. How important is it to upskill the general population to getting used to being in a relationship with AI, where previously this was science fiction, but suddenly they will be working side by side with some type of AI or using it from an augmentation perspective day to day? How do we get people on that journey to make sure that people don't fall behind?
It's not important, it's fundamental. In fact, if you ask me what is my greatest concern looking forward, past the point where we adopt and then implement this law, it is exactly this. How do we actually equip our society in general, our people, our children, our labor force, all of us, in fact, how do we equip it for the future that comes, and for a future that is going to be AI driven, and services and products everywhere around us that will be having some sort of AI in them. And there is also, I would say, unfortunately, an area where the EU and the collective action at the EU level cannot be leveraged, because education is not a competence where the EU can do things. Labor is not a competence where the EU can do things. So in fact, all of this major adaptation, major transformation that our labor force, our education systems have to go through is something that member states will have to do alone, on their own. And there is, from my point of view, given the gargantuan task that this represents, is not ideal. So we'll have to do as much as possible with soft power at EU level, in terms of strategies, in terms of funding, in terms of putting some coherent programs in place that will be targeting this effort of upskilling our society for this, for absorbing AI into the new reality. But again, it's a all of society kind of approach that needs to be done, public and private sectors together, because it's also for the private sector. I think it's in their interest that society is there at the welcoming end, that receives the technology, that embraces it rather than runs away from it. Whether we're talking of the workplace, where most of jobs that have some sort of intellectual input will be with some form of AI next to it in the years to come. But also, again, if you look at society just as a bunch of consumers, if I am a company, I would have an interest that those consumers, again, are prepared to access the kind of services that I put on the market, the kind of products that I put on the market, which are AI powered, and for which people have to be prepared. So again, education and labor market adaptation, these are key factors, and for now only in the hands of governments, of national governments, of member states, but key factors for the AI transformation that is coming.
Just my final question on that. When we try to get harmonization about everyone actually working within some type of framework with regulation for AI, and different countries are going to have different perspectives, because we have different value systems, we have different views of ethics, which can be challenging selling a product or a service within different areas, different locations. What does your strategy start to become then, and how do you work with those different nations to try to create that kind of one common language on this?
Well, I think this law, in fact, is the first, let's say, building block in creating that sort of coherence, at least here within the EU, because it actually starts from the values that we want to protect as society, and where there is alignment, whether you're in the eastern part of the continent or in the western part, in the north or in the south. We look at society in the same way. We value the same things. Okay, maybe local nuances apply, but still fundamentally, we are all in this union around a core that represents who we are. And this act, in fact, starts from that point, because it's that core that we want to protect. And all of the rules and all of the regime that is part of this act is meant to protect the core. I think the question grows even more relevant when we look outside of the union. Again, inside the union, it's I think the act does that, and of course, it's going to be, as always, the proof of the pudding is in the eating, in the implementation of the law, and whether it's going to hit some hurdles, whether it is implementing understood in a certain way in Estonia and in a different way in Portugal. I think that in itself will be a challenge. We've seen that challenge with other pieces of European legislation as well, and this is where it is important at the level of the EU governance, and this is why I insisted for an EU level governance with an EU office, because I wanted to have a common point at the European level that tries to, in a way, harmonize all the possible different interpretation of local nuances in how the law is understood and applied, and make sure that there is one single law of the land in a way, and that's quite important, and that we also truly give to our companies the potential, the power of the whole single digital market. Because otherwise, if we remain in 27 different national markets, then we miss the target. But then again, going beyond the union, yes, there's going to be quite, I think, for some time, there's going to be some diverse takes on how far and what shape of governance different jurisdictions will decide to put in place. And I think as Europeans being first ones with our governance, I think we'll have a duty to, first of all, promote our model, not because we want to be aggressive about it, but because I think it is a model that is based on some values that we also want to see being reflected in other governance approaches in other parts of the world.
And my last question, Dragoș, what are you most excited about with this act? There's so much work has gone behind the scenes, we'll never know. But tell us about what you're most excited about, what this brings.
Well, I'm excited that we actually did create the premises for this AI transformation to be a positive one. One which people don't have to fear. Because I'll be very honest, what motivated me to jump in this wagon, to pick up this file, which was not necessarily natural to me. I'm a lawyer by profession. I'm not at all a digital guy, but I came into this because I was concerned with what AI can actually do to our societies if not regulated properly. And therefore, for me, this act is exciting because we've done exactly what I think society expected us to do. And also as a parent, looking at the future of my children, I'm now much more confident that that future can actually be shaped in the direction that we as humans want it to be shaped, with the technology playing the role that we want it to play, and certainly not the other way around.
Fantastic. Dragoș Tudorache, member of the European Parliament at European Parliament, thank you very much for joining us on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me.
I'm really excited to unveil my new book, AI Unleashed, Navigating the AI Revolution as a Business Executive, which is now accessible to purchase on Amazon and Amazon Kindle. This publication is the fruit of half a decade's worth of meticulous research and high-level conversations with experts in the field, both in Ireland and globally. The book is particularly timely, featuring current discussions on AI governance in the European Union and North America. If you're aiming to grasp the full scope of AI, ready your enterprise for its transformative power, and utilize it to your advantage, this book is specifically crafted for you. It serves as a pragmatic guide, clarifying misconceptions and presenting real-world insights for leaders entering the AI sphere. The book covers an extensive array of subjects, from AI's role in diverse industries to generative AI applications, and provides guidance on avoiding typical missteps in AI initiatives, all supported by the most recent studies. Additionally, the book highlights case studies and applications that have earned accolades at AI awards throughout the years and emphasize top-notch AI utilization in Ireland. For executives, poly-architects, or technology aficionados seeking to make sense of the intricate world of AI, AI Unleashed, Navigating the AI Revolution is your essential handbook. So it's now available on Amazon. This book furnishes you with the expertise and instruments required to deploy AI both effectively and ethically.